So this is the third section of this talk, inshallah. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is look at some of the general characteristics which are apparent from the Surooriyyah in general. Before we do that, let's just give a definition of what we mean by Surooriyyah. When we say the Surooriyyah, this word Surooriyyah itself. Okay, so this word Surooriyyah from Muhammad Surur, who's been active in da'wah for a while, and initially he was with Ikhwan al-Muslimin before he left them and began to refute them, and recently he began a number of magazines in which he started talking about the political affairs, and he reached the level where he did takfir of every single state and government, and by necessity he did takfir of all the scholars and put them into two categories: either they're munafiq, or either they are people who are just pawns of the government and who don't know that they're being used, and so on and so forth. So really, the Surooriyyah is a word which has a general application for anyone who is upon the bid'ah of takfir, and who calls to this political activism, and who calls for the general people who have no knowledge and who are ignorant to get involved in the political affairs and to point them to the rulers, and to, this is generally the phenomenon which we call Surooriyyah. And it doesn't just refer to Muhammad Surur, it refers to this general thought or concept which is prevalent in many different groups. So in a way we can say that Hizbut-Tahrir, who have takfir within them and who have this political activism within them, we would say that they have some, we would say they are Surooriyyah with this sense or with this meaning. Okay. Likewise, we would say that a particular individual is Sururi. We don't mean that he's a follower of Muhammad Surur by necessity, but we mean that he's upon this general thought and idea of political activism and getting involved in parties and removing the rulers, and this is the way forward, and so on and so forth, and taking them away from the manhaj which is in the kitab and the sunnah. So this is a general clarification. This is how we should understand when we use the word sururi. So the first of their characteristics is al-Hizbiyyah, which is this partisanship and loyalty to one's group. And this itself is manifested in a number of different ways. The first of which is that their principle of loving and hating for the sake of Allah is not upon the book and the sunnah, rather it's upon whatever the group necessitates, and upon whoever loves their ulama or whoever hates their ulama. So for example, when you refute Sayyid Qutb, then you are a madkhali and a khabith, and someone who is paid by the government, and so on and so forth. So when you refute the statements of Sayyid Qutb, such as what we've mentioned, and how Sayyid Qutb reviled the scholars of Islam, leaving them aside, reviled the Anbiya of Allah, such as Musa alayhi salam, this hasty, impeccable character, as he describes him, in his discourse about him. And likewise Uthman, who was nothing, his khilafah was nothing, as he says about him in many other statements. So when it comes to refuting Sayyid Qutb, and the fact that he denies the Ahad Hadith, or he denies the miracles of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the fact that he Khalqul Qur'an in his words, or for example where he speaks about the fact that an individual has a choice, that Islam has come to establish the freedom of choice to choose a religion. Okay? This is what Islam has came for. So when you see this kufr in the word from the likes of Sayyid Qutb, when you refute him, then you are a madkhali, and you splitting the ranks of the ummah, and you are a jahil and a khabith, and so on and so forth. And likewise with Hassan al-Banna, when you refute Hassan al-Banna, the one who said in a public gathering and a meeting in front of the Americans and the British, he says, look, our dispute with the Jews is not to do with the religion, rather Islam has come. And all the quotes are here, no one can deny them, they're all here. This is from the books of the Ikhwan, who narrate these themselves. Our dispute is not with to do with the religion, rather Islam has come and told us to respect them, and has allowed us to be on good terms with them. Rather our dispute with them is based upon the land. So this is kufr. The statement is a statement of kufr. However, when it comes to refuting Hassan al-Banna and his very Sufi indulgences and inclinations, and the fact that he used to indulge in the milad and visit the graves and witness all the greatest forms of shirk, then you are a madkhali and a khabith and a so on and so forth and whatever. But someone who teaches and learns from the books of Sayyid Qutb, then he is what they say in their terms, an islahi, a muslih, a reformer, a reviver, someone who works for the movement. This is a manifestation of Hizbiyyah from them. The second thing, which is a sign of their Hizbiyyah, is that this issue of istithna, as we know that from the Salaf, it's the manhaj of the Salaf that no one should say, I am a believer, without him saying, Insha'Allah. This is because, excuse me, this isn't because a Muslim doubts in his iman, but rather because the understanding of iman with the Salaf is that iman is qawlun wa amalun, speech of the heart and the speech of the tongue and the actions of the limbs, and how iman is a comprehensive term which refers to all of the righteous actions. No one can say, I am a believer. Why? Because he doesn't know for certain that he has acquired all of the good deeds and so on and so forth. So from the Salaf, from the manhaj of the Salaf is that we do not say, I am a believer, rather we say, I am a believer, insha'Allah. Okay? However, what we find from the Surooriyyah and from those affected by the bid'ah of the Khawarij is that they say, Ash-Shaheed Hasan al-Banna, Ash-Shaheed Sayyid Qutb, and this itself is tarkul istithna, the abandonment of this istithna. Why? Because from the books of the Salaf, from the Aqidah of the Salaf, like Imam al-Tahawi, where he says that we do not place anyone in paradise or hellfire on account of a sin that he did or an act that he did. And likewise, Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih includes a chapter heading called Bab La Yuqal Fulanun Shaheed. Chapter, it's not to be said that so-and-so is a shaheed. It's not permissible to say that. Unless, of course, that you say, Insha'Allah. However, we find them that they don't stick to this principle. Okay? Why? Because it's a requirement of the movement that you address their mentors and their leaders in such a way. And from experience, as Sheikh Abdul Malik explains, how many times have we said to them, say Insha'Allah, and they refuse and they never do it. Okay? That's another sign of their Hizbiyyah. The third sign of their Hizbiyyah is how one of their leaders makes an error. Then you have to put your eyes on the floor and you have to be silent about the error, and you're not allowed to mention it. Why? Because it's not in the benefits of their movement and their dawah and so on and so forth. So, closing your eyes from the errors is something which is not allowed. And again, this is a reality that you find amongst them. So how many amongst them do you see that if you say, Safar al-Hawali said such and such, or Salman al-Awda said, takfir, sarih, then you are a jahil and a shaitan, and you speak about the ulama, and they are like, the likes of the ulama of old who are in the prison, and it's jahils like you who again, no criticism, despite the fact that it's crystal clear that they have erred and they've made errors. Or for example, when the ulama themselves refute the various innovations. Can I have some water, please? Yes. Or for example, when the ulama themselves, the likes of Sheikh Al-Albani, or Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, or Sheikh Ibn Baz, when they clarify that Tawheed al-Hakimiyyah is a bid'ah, and the one who speaks with it is either a mubtadi' or a jahil, or someone who just narrates what he says and he doesn't know what he's narrating. So when the ulama make statements like this, and these same political activists, such as Abdurrahman Abdul Khaliq, and Surur, and Salman al-Awda, and the rest of them propagate this concept and idea, then no, it's obligatory to close your eyes and to look on the floor, and not to use the words of the ulama to show, look, they have erred in a specific thing. Or when the ulama, for example, explain that the Ta'ifatul Mansura and Firqatul Najiyah is one and the same thing, from the understanding of the hadith of the text, because some hadiths say that there will never cease to be a group from my ummah, some hadiths say that the Firqatul Najiyah, that one will be saved from the hellfire. The ulama understand that it's one group, it's the Salafis who adhere to the Qur'an and the Sunnah and the manhaj of the Salaf. However, when they start making a distinction, such as Salman al-Awda, that the Ta'ifatul Mansura is one thing and Firqatul Najiyah is another thing. So then when we find the statements of the ulama in refutation of that, No, it's obligatory to close your eyes and to look on the floor and not to use these statements to refute those specific errors. But what they do instead? They bring the praise of Sheikh bin Baz in general terms. And they bring the praise of Sheikh al-Albani in general terms. And they bring the praise of Ibn Uthaymeen in general terms. And say, see how the ulama have spoken and promoted the likes of Safar al-Hawali, Salman al-Awda, and so on and so forth. And this itself is, as will become clearer further inshallah, that this itself is based upon a faulty understanding of al-jarh wa ta'dil. And in fact there's a whole different aspect to the Surooriyyah when we look at the science of al-jarh wa ta'dil, because they have a policy whereby they try to destroy the principles of al-jarh wa ta'dil and to dilute them and to refute them, so that this kind of argument that they're using, meaning to take the words of the ulama in general and to take them in praise of their leaders and their propounders, and to close your eyes from the specific criticism, they have a separate methodology which is an operation to achieve this goal and this end. And inshallah we'll highlight this a bit later. There's a quick message. Hisham ibn Maryam, please collect your phone from the office urgently, as you're receiving many calls. So that's the another manifestation then, that you have to close your eyes and look on the ground and put your fingers in your ears when it comes to the errors of your movement leaders, and it's not permissible for you to speak about them. However, if one of the Salafi ulama speak with the very same statements that they make, so for example, if Shaykh Rabi' was to say, for example, that our dispute with the Jews is not because of i'tiqad, then how many of them would you see with standing upon the minbar and saying that the highest, with the highest voice, that Shaykh Rabi', this is kufr sarih? How many of them would jump and say this? If Shaykh al-Albani was to say this, how many of them would you say murji al-irja from Shaykh al-Albani? If the same statements was to occur from the ulama of the Salaf, would you see the same attitude? No, you wouldn't. And this is a reality, and it occurs. Why? Because don't you see the Surooriyyah saying that, like for example, Muhammad Surur, that the servants of the servants of the servants of the servants of the Americans, and he's talking here about the ulama, the servants of the servants, the rulers of the servants of so on and so forth. Don't you see that they already make these statements? So if these same statements, their leaders and their mentors and their propounders, if they were to come up with these things, they would jump and raise with their highest voices that this is kufr sarih, and this is dalala, and this is so on and so forth. So here then we find that these are some of the first characteristic is Hizbiyyah in all these different manifestations. Tarkul istithna, love and hate for the wrong reasons, close your eyes from the movement leaders, from the errors, and so on and so forth.